a real answer. So I knew that the next step that I needed was an ultrasound. So our local veterinarian, Dr. Foka, who I had on about a month ago, she said, yeah, no problem. I'll get the guy here. And she got him in. It's a traveling ultrasonographer who has done 3 ultrasounds on George before. And so when I went in with him in the morning, I said, I do not want him sedated. We've got something going on. Plus, his tongue doesn't work very well with the paralysis. And every time he gets sedated, it takes him about 3 days to figure out how to work his tongue again. So I said, I do not want sedation. And the traveling ultrasonographer who was in the back of the hospital refused to come out and talk to me. And so I kept making this poor technician go back and forth and back and forth. And I said, I want to talk to him. I do not want sedation on this dog. And here are all of my reasons. He's got heart disease. I think we might have a cancer going on. His tongue doesn't work after sedation. He's so good. I'll be happy to hold him. I will, if you can't do the ultrasound because he wiggles or misbehaves, I will pay you for the ultrasound, even if I don't get results, but I don't want him sedated. And his answer was, nope, not going to do it without sedation. And so the poor technician was fit to be tied because she's like, it's not our policy, it's his. And I said, I don't care whose policy it is. Somebody needs to talk to me about this. And he would not come out and talk to me. So being the parent who is in charge of my child's well-being, I said, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm leaving. And so I left in tears because I knew I needed an ultrasound and I couldn't get an answer. And I also was crying tears of anger because this was a professional who was not willing to speak with another professional and was, so I get it, guys. I understand your frustration when you go in. Gwen's dog was scheduled for an ultrasound the same day, and she said she didn't want sedation and he wouldn't do it without sedation. Her dog's 80 pounds. So she just agreed to the sedation for her dog. But that's the choice that you make. So I was angry that I couldn't even have a conversation as a professional, but even as a pet parent. So you as pet parents, without initials behind your name, have even more trouble because they don't want to listen to you. I mean, he didn't want to listen to me. So I was angry. So I went home and I said, well, let me hit the internet and find a specialty practice. Now, for those of you who've been following me, you know how much trouble we had finding a specialty practice to pin the cat's leg when he broke his leg because it was a Friday morning. So this was a Tuesday. So I thought, oh my gosh, here I go. I'm going to be calling 20 different hospitals to find somebody who will do an ultrasound on this dog without sedation. And I don't understand the whole sedation thing because in my practice in New Jersey, we never sedated unless your animal was just a screaming maniac. Never did we sedate for an ultrasound. So I called a practice about 30 minutes from home, a specialty center. And we had taken Mittens there when we first moved down here and he had torn his cruciate. And they were very nice. And I thought, well, let's give them a try. And I called and I spoke to the receptionist and explained my problem and my position. And I said, is your doctor willing to do this without sedation? And she said, I don't know. We usually do sedate. I'll find out. And I gave them the same deal. I said, I will bring him. I will hold him if you want me to. And if you can't get it and if you've spent time on it and you can't get it, I'll pay you anyway. This is a $500 deal. I'll pay you anyway. I want you to try. And they called me back and said, we can get you in tomorrow morning. So within 24 hours, I was in first thing in the morning. And we took George in and the doctor came out and had a conversation with me. And I explained my position and why I did not want him sedated. And she said, oh yeah, absolutely. I understand that. And she said, well, let me go do a physical exam on him. And I'll get right back to you. Okay. So she took him and did his physical exam. She came back out. She said, oh my gosh, his heart with that murmur, there's no way I would sedate this dog. We're going to try it without. I said, okay, he's very good and I'll hold him if you need me to. She said, no, that's fine. So Hugh and I hung out in the waiting room. And about 45 minutes later, she came out and she said, we're all done. No sedation. He was really good. And I said, of course he was. I told you, and of course we all think that our pets are wonderful and well-behaved, except he is. And I know he is. So she came out and she got us and talked to us and showed me ultrasound pictures. And so on Facebook, in YouTube, you'll be able to see them. I don't have images that I can hold up. So this one is his, and she said, you're right, there is a mass in the bladder, which, I pretty much had the diagnosis in my head. I knew in my gut what this was going to be. I just needed proof. Do you have the other ultrasound images too, Joey? Okay, so there we go. So what we actually found in George's bladder were 5 tumors, not 1, 5. And they're down at the opening of the bladder where it opens into the urethra to leave the body. And that is usually where transitional cell carcinomas are. Unfortunately, transitional cell carcinomas do not usually have multiple tumors. Now, this has been going on for a while. I would say less than a year, because he had an ultrasound a year ago of his abdomen and we didn't see anything. So do transitional cell carcinomas become multiples if they're there long enough? I don't know, but I am too scared to make it angry. I don't want to stick a catheter up there. I don't want to stick a needle into it. I am doing everything I can to try to manage this without making the tumor angry. So, and George, by the way, has no idea that he's sick, so we haven't told him. He's asleep. He can't hear me anyway. We haven't told him. He's running around playing like a fool. He now gets lunch along with breakfast and dinner because I'm trying to put a little bit of weight back on him. And we've added a whole array. My guys are always on mushroom supplements. They're always on omega-3s, but we've added a whole array of other things to his regimen to try to at least keep this thing at bay. We're far enough advanced and we have so many tumors. My goal is not to kill the cancer. My goal is not to cure the cancer. My goal is, if I could hold it status quo, I'd be thrilled, because he's still able to urinate. And that is what will be an endpoint if he can't urinate. And they also found some nodules on his liver. They don't think those are cancerous, and that's probably the explanation for the slightly elevated alkaline phosphatase. So we don't know. And so I contacted Dr. Kendra Pope in New Jersey, who is a board-certified oncologist and TCVM practitioner. And she wanted me to do a whole bunch of testing because she wants to know his iron levels, his vitamin D levels, which he's always been on a vitamin D supplement, so probably okay, but we'll find out. And a whole bunch of other things. So we're doing a bunch of testing, which hopefully can help direct our treatments a little bit. But this is the frustration of medicine, and this is why we call it practice. My gut told me what was going on, but I had to have proof to be able to do anything. The urine there were no cancer cells seen in that urine sample. Epithelial cells, but no cancer cells seen. Well, clearly there's lumps and bumps in his bladder. So, and his lab work is really pretty pristine. So a lot of times, like hemangiosarcoma dogs, unless the tumor's bleeding and they've collapsed, you'll get perfectly normal lab work with a huge tumor in there. So it's very frustrating. And that's why the abdominal ultrasounds can be so critical. But trying to find an ultrasonographer these days and this all came from COVID. This all came from people being locked out of the building and doctors not having enough help. And they said, well, if I sedate the dog just lays there. It takes one person to do the ultrasound, versus if the dog is squiggly wiggly, it might take 2 people to hold the dog and 1 person to do the ultrasound. So that's a 3-person ordeal instead of a 1-person ordeal. I get it. But is it in the best interest of our pets to automatically sedate them when they've got heart disease, possible cancer, possible liver disease, kidney disease, whatever they have going on? And I think that we need a more humane and compassionate way of dealing with these things. So I really didn't want to come on to have everybody feel bad about George, because we don't feel bad about George, because George is still racing around the house and playing with the puppies, by the way, the puppies, the 2-year-olds. They were all having a wrestling match last night. So George is fine. He thinks he's fine, and I told him he had to live to be 27, and we're only at 15 and a half. So, we got a little ways to go. But the real reason I wanted to have this conversation was to talk about sticking up for your pets, going with your gut, insisting on lab work when there's something, and being persistent when there's something not right, there's something going on. Keep looking until you find that something, and find somebody that's willing to work with you in the best manner for your pet. Like literally, if I had to put George in the car and drive him back to New Jersey to get an ultrasound unsedated, that was my next step. I got lucky. I found somebody a half hour away, and they were very compassionate and extremely wonderful. So anyway, for those of you in this area, it was Points East Veterinary Specialty Hospital in Wilson, North Carolina. Really great group there. Really great group. Okay, everybody have a wonderful weekend. Supporters, 7:00 tonight. We will see you. I'll be having a cup of tea because I got a throat thing going on. Thank you, Gwen.